Welcome to the Young Adults Today podcast, where we talk about reaching the next generation in our world today. I'm Josiah Keneally.
And I'm Micah Keneally.
And we are your hosts. We launch new episodes every Monday to help you start your week off strong.
That's right.
And we're excited for you to tune in and to listen. Thanks for allowing us the opportunity to journey together with you. I want to just read this review that came in on Apple Podcasts. Jamie Haddon, shout out to Jamie. Thanks for listening. She said, so good. Every conversation is intriguing and thought-provoking, brings a challenge and hope in each episode. So thankful for this resource in the midst of young adult ministry. So whether you're starting out, launching a brand new young adult ministry, or strengthening, leading and taking to the next level an existing young adult ministry, we are here with you as your hosts of this podcast, and we want to be guides along the journey, pointing you to Christ, to his word, to his heart. And this episode, we're doing a special short series called FAQs. And each question we're going to take, these are shorter episodes, and they're going to be, short because they're brief and to the point, but they're powerful and important to talk about the questions that you're actually asking.
Well, and here's the very first question that we get all the time. So we're just going to unpack this question. And the question is, what age range is young adult?
It is, I'm not joking. It seems like every week in our Young Adult Ministry Leaders Facebook group, powered by Young Adults Today, every week, and there's 2,100 of you who are a part of that Facebook group. And almost every week people are asking like, hey, how do you define young adults? Like, who's a young adult? So that means that, and here's what I'd say, whether you agree with Mike and I and our definition or not, my bottom line to this question is define it for yourself. Because the reality is it's not copy paste.
Right.
It's not cookie cutter ministry. You are empowered by the Holy Spirit to do contextualized young adult ministry in your city, your community. You understand your culture better than we do. But I would say our challenge for you today is define your demographic for your church. What is young adult ministry?
Yeah, I think that's the number one thing that you have to do, but then also understand, like, what is the vision of the church? Like, what is the lead pastor's vision? What's your mission statement? What does that mean? How can you come alongside them? And how are they coming alongside you in the young adult ministry that you're leading? So I would say we've always defined young adult ministry ages 18 to 30, no ish. Just 18 to 30. And that's our definition. It doesn't have to be yours. Some do 18 to 25. Some are 25 to 30. I know some young adults are even, 18 to 40-ish. I'm like, wow, you're pushing it. That's a church. There you go.
I mean, seriously. And you might be in a rural context. You might be in more of a suburb of a city. You might be in a downtown metro. You might be in a college town. You might be, at a mega church, a multi-site church that has all different demographics in different places. You might be in a micro church or a church plant. What our belief is that whether you're leading a small group or a network of small groups, young adult ministry works in rural settings, in urban settings, in downtown metropolis cities, and it works in multi-site, mega church, micro church, and everything in between. And one of the things that helps it work is when you define what is a win or who is our demographic, because it helps you honestly put a name and a face. Like at the porch, they have, I think it's John and Jane Doe are their like target demographics. They even have them named for like who they're trying to reach in Dallas, Texas. And so you might put a name and a face, and it might help you pray for those types of people. And Micah mentioned that with us, we've always defined young adults, whether we're leading in the state of Minnesota, when she was on staff at a church in North Dakota, when I was on staff at Cedar Valley in Minnesota. What we define young adults as 18 to 30, and even that is a massive broad stroke. You have within there really subgroups. And we've landed on 3 subgroups as our ministry grew. When we were leading together, we kind of identify it as these 3. And then I'll explain what we mean. We kind of call it college students or college age. that 18 to 25. We have that
Mm-hmm.
career. It's a little bit more pro, young professional,
Mm-hmm.
starting out that first job, that internship, landing a big boy or big girl job. And then we have couples. And now couples are probably going to be without kids, because once you have a family, you're going to be plugging in more with family life of the whole church. But we just believe that young adults are looking for community.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking for multiple touch points throughout the week. They're looking for their friends and those relational needs that they have. And so what we did is we had our events all together. So if you were 18 to 30, whether you were a young couple, dating, engaged, or married, whether you were a career, young professional, or whether you were a college age student, we did our events together.
Yeah.
So special events and gatherings together, but then we had small groups that were kind of geared towards college students with college age. We had career with young professionals. We had couples with couples, and that helped a lot. We even reached a point where we had a coach over each network of all the college small groups had one coach. All the young professionals had one coach, and then the young couples had a coach. And you've just talked about, like, look, even 18 to 30, nothing's forever.
Right. Right.
Can you talk about that?
Well, I just think sometimes we forget that there's on ramps and off ramps, right? So we've had 16-year-olds who want to be a part of the ministry, but they're underage. And then we run into their underage. Should they be a part of this? And just, we could get into some messy situations. So we always say the on ramp is 18, freshman year of college is on the on ramp. That's your prerequisite.
That's good.
More or less. And then the off ramp, we kind of draw a hard line in the sand when we say, hey, it's 30. It's not 35. It's not 45. It's not 50 and single and wanting to be married. Because we've had those, like, you're going to have those people come along, no matter what setting you're in, that happens. And it's not a bad thing. You as a leader just may have to have some difficult, challenging, maybe awkward, come to Jesus moments with those individuals in a loving, kind way. And we want to help prepare you for that. But some of the off ramps that we've done were actually really easy. So I would say we did two things. One, I'll say this, they are 25 to 30 and they are solid, means that they're reading the word of God. They're showing up and volunteering at every event you have. They've been a part of a life group. And we usually would approach them who are more matured in their walk with the Lord and said, hey, if you're 25 to 30, would you be willing to be available to mentor, disciple, get coffee with, speak into the other people's lives? The other people, meaning the 18 to 24-year-old who are navigating those pivotal moments of, do I transfer my credits? Do I move here? What small group do I get plugged in with? Do I take this job? What is my first big kid job? Like you had said, those people are designed, that we designed a role for people who were in a place to speak into those other individuals. So that's one approach that we said is like, it's a soft off ramp, right?
Right. Because they were co-leading or leading a lot of the small groups. They were helping facilitate a lot of the gatherings and events. And it was just a great way to go about it.
Right. They had their hands in ministry and they were volunteering to high capacities. So the other approach that we had taken was more or less like, there's always a men's group or Bible study that's very specific for the men of the church, not just young adults, the entire church. And then the women were going through a special women's study for about 8 weeks. So what we did is we actually divided our big co-ed Bible study. He took the 10 men, I probably took the 20 women, and said, hey, for the next 8 weeks on these Wednesday nights, we're going to support the women's ministry and he's going to support the men's ministry. And we're just going to be the hands and feet of Christ in a different setting, meeting at the church versus in our home.
Yeah.
And what that did is we were placed around tables naturally, and it came very organically with people of the church, the men and the women of the church. And we found that the people that were in our Bible study who were 28, 29, maybe just hit 30, naturally had come to me and Josiah and said, you know what? After that event and doing Bible study, I realized, like, I'm kind of in a place, I'm not married, but I'm in a place to where I can kind of transition, move on, because I met people. I've met other women who are 35 that are single, wanting to be married. So there are friendships, relationships, and they were exposed to the different generations of the church. So we had the women's director come to me and she's like, Micah, do you want all your young adult women to sit at the same table? And I'm like, no, intentionally put them at different tables. If there's one or two, that's great, but do not put 10 people at this table that are all my Bible study girls, right? So I said, hey, can you strategically place them at tables? And she's like, that's a great idea. So she adopted that idea. And that was just a natural off ramp for many people who were in a place and a position essentially to move out and to move on, who still had a heart for ministry, but then became the hands and the feet of the next level. I don't know if you want to say that level of life. And I don't know, we just saw some amazing things happen that way. So I don't know, did I miss anything that you want me to touch on?
No, I mean, I love what you said, babe, about on ramps and off ramps. It helps people. Maybe we thought through, we did a 6-week with juniors, seniors, and their parents. We did a
Oh yeah.
transitions, like
Mm-hmm.
helping people learn how to do adulting 101. And it was life skills, it was
Mm-hmm.
choosing a college, it was how to pay for college, it was minimizing debt in college, it was also preparing them for relationships and
Mm-hmm.
friendships and building community. And then at the end of those classes, they would actually visit our next young adult gathering, so
Mm-hmm.
like they would understand like kind of the pipeline. So we thought of the sunrise there, or the on ramp there, and then strategically off ramping people. I think that can be one of the challenges, that if we don't define who
Mm-hmm.
is a young adult or who can come. And look, every event that we ever did or ever do, there's invariably some people who are 32 or
Mm-hmm.
31, and they're like, man, can I come? And I just believe that it's delaying the inevitable. It could be an awkward conversation
Right.
now, or an even more awkward conversation later. And because
Right.
what it looked like, and I'll let you share in
No,
just
go
a
ahead.
second, but I just want to complete the thought. Like, what it looked like is, I'm 35 and single. Can I come? But then there's 18-year-olds, and it's just like,
Who's the
as
creepy guy in the corner worshiping? That's what they would
exactly,
ask you guys.
exactly. And then it was partnering with the local church. So we're not saying silo the ministry.
Right.
I'll get into more of this in just a second, to talk about not siloed, but actually integrating
Mm-hmm.
young adults into the lifeblood of the
Mm-hmm.
church. But how you talked about sunrises and sunsets. Look, people move, people transition,
Right.
people get new jobs, people get married, and they're going to off ramp. They're going to have a sunset, even to their volunteering and leadership and
Mm-hmm.
serving within our ministry. But our aim is to help them get plugged in with women's and men's ministries, to be an intergenerational church. And I think you
Right.
had wanted to add something.
Well, I just want to bring a real life event that we experienced within the last couple of years. And that is, so we host a special event, right? So people have to pay to come to it. It's an overnight thing. And we have the 32-year-old coming and saying, hey, I'm dating somebody. She's 28. So she's under 30. Can I come and spend the night too? Well, I'm a rule follower, and I was like, no, absolutely not. And Josiah's were like, well, it wouldn't be that bad, and sometimes we try to justify other people's ages and make the decision for them. But here's the thing, if we try to, this is what my fear was, if we let everybody in at age 32, what happens next year when we host something? Now they're 33 and they're like, well, you let me do this last year. And so it's like, how do we lovingly come across people and say, hey, if you're 35 and you are a key leader
Right.
and you are going
Different
to be the
ballgame.
go-to person for your group of young adults that you're going to bring, that's great. But there's probably a pastor, a little team of key leaders, but then your main group, that's a different story and a conversation to be had. But when we start having people saying, well, you let me do this last year, if we do it once, we'll have to do it always. And we wish we could do everything for everyone at all ages. Like, we really do have a heart for that. Do for one that you could do for all. But then it's like, oh my gosh, as this thing grows, are we going to find ourselves in a situation where the off ramp becomes very blurred, and we're not pointing people to the big C church or the men's group that they would obviously probably do better in, or the women's group that they would really connect in? So it's kind of that inevitable feeling of like, oh, we have to have that hard conversation.
And the event that Mike is talking about was the YA weekend. And I remember there was like a 16 or 17-year-old that registered,
Yeah.
and we refunded them. And we actually said, there's teen camp. Our state of Minnesota, the
Mm-hmm.
district, we have youth camp that you can go towards. So we switched their registration right over to the youth. And in that 32-year-old, we had a tough phone call. And I think sometimes our fear is like, well, what if nobody comes? Or we want those people to come, so we'll accept younger, we'll accept older, and then the group will grow. But I've actually found that when we help people have
Narrow
on
that.
ramps and off ramps, those are the groups that actually
Mm-hmm.
grow deeper and go deeper, because it's really laser focusing what is your target market and audience. And I
Mhm.
want to just kind of just sketched out some notes that have it's been how we've approached ministry. And this is
Hmm.
where my mind goes. I believe that personal invitations are stronger than general announcements.
Ooh,
What
that's
I
good.
mean is that a personal invitation is always going to be more effective than a general announcement. Say you're looking for,
Mhm.
nursery volunteers or kids church small group leaders. Like if you make a pulpit announcement, you might get one or two that sign up. But if
Mhm.
you personally ask 5 people, I think you're going to actually have a higher success rate
Mm,
getting the people
mm.
that you need by saying, I see this in you. Would you try it for 6 months, once a month?
Right.
And so personal invitations, I've just seen that ministry as a pastor, ministry is often a series of personal invitations.
Mhm.
Have you ever thought about becoming a member of this church? I just see your giftings and you like, we'd love for you to become a member. I think that might be your next step. Have you ever thought about coming with me to the membership class? Have you ever gotten water baptized? I just believe the New Testament where Jesus says,
Mm.
believe and be baptized. So I'm going to invite you to water baptism this month. Serving or volunteering, like one of the things that I think was a key metric for success was how
Mm.
many young adults are serving and volunteering, not in young adult ministry,
Right.
but
Right.
actually in worship team, coffee, door holders, ushers, greeters, service hosts, nursery workers, youth group leaders. Like these
Mhm.
were volunteers. And many times we've seen that people and churches will have when they have a young adult ministry,
Yeah.
but they integrate and say you do a Friday night quarterly event and you actually have the other pastors and staff and team from your churches and ministries. We've seen 30 to 50 young adults sign
Mhm.
up to serve
Right.
because they're looking, they have the time. And this is kind of how you can help extend the vision of your senior leadership, your
Mm.
pastor or leader, senior pastor, lead pastor. The goal of a young adult pastor in the role is to extend the vision of the church into a younger audience.
Wow.
So again,
That's
it's
good.
not siloed ministry. So you could have, like, I remember one of our favorite nights was we did a mixer and
Oh,
we
yeah.
teamed up the 18 to 30-year-old young adult ministry with the 55 plus. This was your idea, Micah. And we did a mixer with the senior adult ministry and the young adult ministry. And kind of like before, only 4 young adults, only 4 senior adults at a table, and you each bring something to eat. And it was a hit. They would beg to do it every year. And there's mentorships, there's life-changing relationships
Mm.
and friendships that would have never happened
Yeah.
otherwise. So we're not saying you can't have a pastor who's over 30
Right.
or that you can't have volunteers who are 65 and prayer warriors. What we're just saying for the participants of your ministry, and I think when you do that, I think it just helps people plug into whatever their next church, say
Right.
they move to Texas. Then their next church might not have a young adult ministry that looks
Mm.
like yours did, but now they know how to serve.
Mhm.
Now they know how to be a part of an intergenerational small group. And now they know how to be a part of the lifeblood of the church.
But yeah, and I think it goes back down to the original question is you as a listener and as a leader get to define what is the age range of a young adult. And you get to unpack that. So take into consideration your location, the culture, the culture. And we don't want to be cookie cutter Christians who
Exactly.
say, do this because it worked out for us. What we're saying is help narrow the focus. And I think that I can't remember what book I was reading, but it talks about narrowing the focus. Is we have this big, broad,
This ministry is for
idea,
everyone.
then we lose. And are we effective to anyone? I think that's the question. But if we can hone in and laser on the people that God's called you to speak to, he's given you the mantle, he's given you the microphone, the position, the location, the church, the group of people, shepherd the people that are before you, but cast vision to them as well. So when you cast vision from the pulpit of saying, hey, if you're 18 and 30 in the room, then you are in the right place. Here's what we have to offer. And you let them know what they have to offer, from volunteering to special events, to Bible studies, to whatever it could be.
Mission trips.
Have
Sky's the
fun.
limit. Yeah.
And I think that's what we just want to encourage you to do is be a leader, but know the vision, because there are so many times we've come to people like, well, what's the vision? And they can't answer it. They go, I don't know. Okay, but you have a job. This is your role, and you don't have a vision. Who are your people? What is the age range? How did you start? And there are deer in headlights. And I would say, if you feel like that deer in headlights when I ask that question, number one thing that I would encourage you to do, get in prayer. Take it to the Lord in prayer. Lord, in whatever setting you're in, show me who the people are. Show me and bring the right people. Because you can pray in the right people. You can pray in the volunteers. You can pray in the special events. You can pray in the people who are creative, who think differently than you, who approach things differently, that challenge even your leadership. And those are healthy things. We want those people to be a part of the group who are trying to just become part of the hands and feet of Christ in the young adult setting, but also in the church that they're a part of. So that's how I would just end it today, is get in prayer. If you can't define what God's called you to, wow, take us back to our first love, Lord. Take us back to you in all that we do. So that's what I got.
That's amazing. And hey, this might spur on or spark a conversation where you listen to this with your volunteer team or your pastor or your board, and just to begin to ask, like, who has God called us to reach? This might also spark great questions for you to process as a leadership team in your setting. And lastly, you might want to reach out to us at youngadults.today on Instagram, or through our website. It's www.youngadults.today. Micah and I don't have all the answers,
Right.
but we're willing to take follow-up questions as a part of this FAQ series. So until next time, we are the Canaleys, and we're signing off. We'll talk to you soon.